Absolutely. Thank you, Asa. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. My name is Grant Goodrich. I'm the director of the Great Lakes Energy Institute at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. The Great Lakes Energy Institute is a leader in energy-related research dedicated to creating innovative and sustainable energy solutions. From the inception of the Powering Ohio project, we've provided advice and shared insights into Ohio's opportunities and challenges in a changing energy environment with the entire project team. Today, leaders from some of Ohio's largest corporations, emerging companies, and research institutions are coming together to release a new report, Powering Ohio, a path forward for energy and transportation transformation. The report is a 9-step roadmap, concrete actions recommended to better realize the opportunities and benefits of energy innovation now and over the next 5 years, creating a projected 20,000 jobs and capturing up to $25 billion in an investment. And perhaps just as importantly, these steps provide direction to retain and expand employment in industries where clean energy technology is poised to disrupt markets, factories, and workforce, industries critical to Ohio such as manufacturing and transportation. The report is the second in a series issued by Synapse Energy Economics and follows the May release of Powering Ohio, a vision for growth and innovative energy investment. The initial report presented a pro-growth vision for Ohio and the scale of opportunities through energy innovation. The next phase of Powering Ohio depends on engaging business, community, education, and government leaders to act, earn wins for the state, its people, and their enterprises, and build greater confidence and momentum for further action. Asa Hopkins is a principal associate with Synapse Energy Economics, the primary researchers for the Powering Ohio reports. Asa joins us today to further explain the Powering Ohio process and detail the action steps included in today's report. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Asa. Asa, go ahead.
Thank you, Grant. As Grant mentioned, this second Powering Ohio report presents 9 tangible and timely actions to attract high-growth clean energy industries to Ohio's economy. The report shows what business, community, education, and government leaders should do to build and expand on a shared vision for Ohio's success. In developing this collaborative plan, we relied on diverse voices and viewpoints that represent the range of perspectives that will make Ohio's participation in the energy and transportation transformations all the stronger. I'd particularly like to thank the advisors and the others who have shared their expertise and their opinions with us along the way and helped us develop this path forward. While the results of last week's elections will affect the details of how Ohio proceeds, we shaped these actions to be built around common ground approaches that make sense across the political spectrum. As Grant described, this report builds on our first Powering Ohio report, which detailed the state's opportunities sector by sector: transportation, clean electricity, energy efficiency, and the electric grid. The combination of collaboration and decisive action will allow Ohio to capture investment and job opportunities before they're lost to competing states. The plan we provide cuts across the sectors and requires action from both private and public sector leaders. Specifically, we lay out actions that strengthen Ohio's electric vehicle and clean energy manufacturing, build and utilize essential infrastructure, and help businesses access the clean energy that they need to succeed. The 9 actions that we have identified are evenly distributed across those 3 areas. So the first 3 actions are around strengthening Ohio's manufacturing future. We focus heavily on the state's auto industry, but each of these actions applies more broadly to clean energy manufacturing as well. We're focused on the auto industry because of its importance to Ohio and the combination of risk and opportunity that industry in particular faces in the next few years. Ohio is currently number 3 in the country for auto industry jobs. It has particular focus within that industry on engines and drivetrains. These are the parts of the car that will change the most with the coming of electric vehicles, which is where experts around the world see the auto industry going over the next decade and beyond. Today, Ohio is only 14th in the country in electric vehicle and connected vehicle jobs. The difference between losing thousands of jobs as the internal combustion engine economy fades, compared with gaining thousands of jobs by maintaining its traditional market share into new drivetrain technologies, is almost $1 billion in annual wages. In developing a set of actions to address this manufacturing opportunity, we begin with enhancing the state's electric vehicle and clean energy workforce. Companies looking to expand or move need to know that they'll have access to a world-class workforce in their industry where they're growing. Here we see industry sector partnerships as a very promising tool. ISPs bring together manufacturers, labor, and educating and training resources to identify skills gaps, develop training programs tailored to the needs of specific industries. The second manufacturing action is aimed squarely at ensuring that Ohio has a strong future within supply chains and assembly for electric vehicles and other fast-growing clean energy industries. Jobs Ohio and other economic development agencies should target these sectors specifically with their incentives. They should identify specific programs and staff within their organizations tasked with capturing these opportunities. Looking forward for manufacturing in Ohio, innovation and quality will be essential for the state to stay competitive. The third action we identified is for companies to work more closely with manufacturing extension partnerships and the Manufacturing USA network of institutes. Ohio is home to one of those institutes, America Makes, in Youngstown, which is leading on additive manufacturing and 3D printing. And Ohio companies can also work with the institutes that are centered in other states in fields such as electronics and composites. The second trio of actions relates to building for the long term in both policy and physical infrastructure. Ohio's inconsistent policy approach to clean energy has hampered investment and job growth. So first and foremost, Ohio should develop and act upon a state energy strategy that supports clean energy and transforming transportation. For example, consistent policy support for steady, even-handed expansion of energy efficiency and renewable portfolio standards would help Ohio businesses and employees benefit from Ohio's transition to a clean energy economy. Ohio will also need a 21st century electric grid to compete. That means updating the current grid and better integrating it with communications networks. The Public Utilities Commissions of Ohio, the PUCO, has created a promising start for bringing Ohio's grid into the future through a project called Power Forward. Along those lines, we see great potential in new markets for distributed clean energy solutions, includes things such as rooftop solar, heat pumps, and programmable appliances that can help reduce or shift energy demands off of peak to reduce costs for everyone. Another essential piece of shared infrastructure is the transportation network. With electric vehicles coming, this will also affect the electric grid, and both of these networks are together going to be transformed by information technology. Ohio can establish itself as a leader along the full supply chain of transportation innovation, manufacturing, testing, and deployment by building on its existing smart transportation projects like Smart Columbus and fostering new markets like fast EV charging. Our third trio of actions relates to helping Ohio businesses succeed with clean energy. Of the state's 100 largest employers, 48 have made quantified clean energy or greenhouse gas emission reduction commitments. Together, these companies and institutions employ almost 500,000 Ohioans, but there's still no state-level recognition for these leaders. A group of these companies could create a recognition program to celebrate their success, share best practices, and challenge other companies across the state to join them. Many companies are also looking for access to affordable clean energy as part of their decision about where to locate or expand their facilities. Jobs Ohio could encourage pairing new facilities with new clean energy deployment to get the win-win of investment, jobs, and tax revenue in two places in the state from each paired transaction. Finally, we see an important role for local or regional organizations to support small and medium businesses, high-sized businesses, who want to take advantage of clean energy but don't have the economies of scale to cost-effectively do it on their own. The aggregators or matchmakers can lower businesses' cost of energy while also helping them meet their customers' needs while supporting in-state renewable energy, energy efficiency, and electric vehicle fleets. As you've heard, the Powering Ohio approach is purposely cross-sectoral and comprehensive, befitting the breadth of the opportunities available to the state. The actions we've identified here address the urgent risks and opportunities facing Ohio today, and they can begin immediately. Leaders from government and across Ohio's strong foundation in manufacturing, innovation, education, business, and finance all have important roles to play. Each of these actions will need one or more champions to carry it forward, and based on our conversations across the state, we believe those champions will emerge. Ohio's leaders can and should harness this widespread and growing interest to power common ground actions, earn wins for the state, and repeat effective approaches with greater confidence and momentum. Sustained action will allow the state to become a stronger competitor for investment than a leader and build a more robust and more prosperous economy for all Ohioans. Thank you all very much for letting us share this exciting path forward with you this morning. And I look forward to answering questions after we have heard from some of the experts that we talked with and relied upon in developing this plan.
Thank you very much, Asa. So as Asa just mentioned, also with us today are members of the Powering Ohio Advisory Council who were instrumental in providing information and their own company's perspective on energy innovation and implementation. I'll introduce the three of them quickly. Becky Campbell is the Manager of Legislative and Regulatory Affairs for First Solar Incorporated. Becky has been with First Solar since 2015 and previously served as the company's Manager of Utility Market Development. First Solar was born in Perrysburg and has been manufacturing its low-cost, industry-leading thin-film solar modules in the region for nearly 2 decades. Sam Spofford has served as the Executive Director of Clean Fuels Ohio since the organization's founding in 2002. Under Spofford's leadership, Clean Fuels Ohio has become one of the leading clean cities coalitions, making a major impact on advanced transportation deployment in Ohio. Also with us today is Neil Lane. Neil is the President and CEO of Global Cooling's Sterling Ultracold, a startup company focused on manufacturing and marketing biological refrigeration products. The business employs Ohioans in both a manufacturing facility in Athens and a sales, marketing, and development office in Columbus. We'll kick things off with a question for Becky. Becky, the report leads with actions that would strengthen Ohio's manufacturing future. As a leading American solar manufacturer, how has First Solar worked to develop the workforce it needs to succeed here in Ohio, and how will that serve you moving forward?
Thanks, Grant. So as you already mentioned, Ohio is the birthplace of First Solar. Our company was founded in Perrysburg in the early 1990s, and we've steadily grown our footprint in the region since that time. Our Ohio facility is unique because it's not only the largest solar panel manufacturing facility in the U.S., it also serves as the company's global R&D and product development hub. This makes the Ohio office pretty unique because it brings together a broad range of skill sets under one roof. We have our manufacturing associates sitting in the same offices as our team of PhD product researchers. So this creates an environment for associates to interact across skill sets and presents really unique opportunities for professional growth. If you were to walk down the halls of First Solar, you would frequently hear the phrase, "One First Solar." This is a phrase that really embodies our corporate culture, and the entire company kind of functions as a single team with a shared goal, leading the world's sustainable energy future. Collaboration and accountability are core traits for all of our associates, and it's this culture that instills a strong sense of pride and ownership in what the team is working to accomplish. Our staff are passionate about their jobs. We have 2 employees, in fact, in our Perrysburg office that just celebrated their 25th anniversaries with the company. They've essentially been with First Solar since the very beginning. And if you were to ask our executives what the single largest factor has been that's made our company thrive the most, they would hands down tell you that it's our team, it's our associates. Because of that, the company invests heavily in its associates. Employees are encouraged to create annual development plans, and the company also provides necessary resources and tools to support staff in achieving their development goals. First Solar has also enjoyed support and partnerships across the region with academic institutions like Bowling Green State University, Owens Community College, and the University of Toledo, state and local organizations like Ohio Means Jobs, the Toledo Chamber of Commerce, Jobs Ohio, and the Wood County Economic Development Authority. And we also have a robust network of Ohio-based supply chain partners. We work with more than 250 partners across the advanced technology supply chain in Ohio. that, we do business with them. And by doing this and working with other local companies, that helps us to streamline our costs of doing business while further distributing the economic benefits of our industry throughout the state. Looking towards the future, I would say this summer our company broke ground on a new manufacturing facility in Lake Township. And when that's completed, it'll triple our manufacturing capabilities in Ohio and support 500 full-time new staff. One of the biggest challenges that we've seen as we've gone through this growth has been attracting new talent to the company. So some of the concepts that Asa just laid out, such as investing in the creation of new workforce training initiatives and manufacturing centers of excellence, would provide an immense benefit not only to First Solar, but also to Ohioans that are looking to grow their career opportunities at companies like ours.
Well, thank you so much, Becky. That was a very thorough answer. Next, I'd like to turn to Sam. Sam, the report emphasizes the importance to Ohio's economy of capturing the opportunities that will come as transportation electrifies. This shift will bring two large sets of infrastructure together, obviously on one side the electric grid and on the other the transportation system. So how do you think Ohio can make the most out of bringing these two systems together in the 21st century?
Well, thanks a lot, Grant. And I guess just to start off, I would point out that we are seeing this exciting blending and merging of these true large energy sectors in our economy. And with that blending and merging, I mean, we're seeing opportunities, we're seeing some threats as well. But I think what's important to point out at the outset is that electrified transportation creates the potential for huge benefits for all utility customers, as well as utilities, the grid itself, and then, of course, for motorists. But in order to leverage these benefits, Ohio utilities themselves must make some smart investments in electric vehicle charging infrastructure. The new off-peak load from more electric vehicles will or can drive down rates for all electricity customers, can also make the grid more resilient over time, and then also can facilitate the integration of lower-cost renewables on the grid. And all this is great for electricity customers regardless of income, but we really need to see these infrastructure investments to realize the benefits. And the reason that all utility customers, not just motorists, benefit or can benefit is that properly designed programs for utilities to make these investments and to kind of channel how the investments are made, along with policies. This will generate additional revenue in the system, so more electric vehicles plugging in equates to more load and more revenue. And as long as that load is concentrated during off-peak hours, there's no real corresponding increase in the distribution infrastructure costs. And so this creates a positive net revenue over time, and this will take a number of years to grow, but over time this positive net revenue will grow, and that will exert downward pressure on all rates. I think it's important to point out that we're seeing some great leadership right now. We have been seeing some great leadership now in this space from the Public Utilities Commission and Chairman Hawk and the other commissioners in the entire Power Forward process. And the recently released roadmap recognizes both the need for these kinds of investments as well as the beneficial impacts from electric vehicles on this grid of the future. And I'd also like to point out, in following up Rebecca's comments, that one of the long-term benefits that we see from electric vehicles is their potential to facilitate integration of lower-cost renewables. Thus the benefits of EVs themselves and also of these renewable sources of electricity, such as wind and solar, can be leveraged together for benefits for all consumers and the grid. And these benefits can not only benefit the grid, they can benefit energy management systems for really any building that can locate workplace charging, or those kinds of solutions. And so, we really see a lot of opportunity here that's exciting. Again, an opportunity that could benefit, obviously, motorists, any kind of a business with a fleet, but also, all utility customers as well.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Sam. And just thinking about your response as you talk through opportunities for the electric utilities, opportunities for motorists, even thinking about the opportunities for businesses, energy service companies who are doing that integrative work as we tie in charging to buildings and to residences and other locations. You can see additional new business opportunities that come through that electrification of everything. Neil, I'd next like to turn to you. Sterling Ultra Cold has been supported by Ohio's economic development ecosystem, including some support from Tech Growth Ohio and the Ohio Innovation Fund. What do you think are the essential components of economic development support for the next small, clean energy companies that want to grow in Ohio? What do you think based on the experiences that you've had in this state?
Thank you, Grant. Yes, let me tell you our story, and I think it illustrates how the state can help and how they've been critical to our success. We have a unique cooling technology, and very much as engineers do, we believe that we could apply it to very low temperature freezers that are used to store biological material, and these freezers would be very much more energy efficient than anything else out there. And in 2009, we applied for a grant from the Third Frontier Advanced Energy Proposal to develop the basic technology. So we started off with a $1 million grant and really developed the technology. And then Tech Growth, as you mentioned, who are housed in the Voinovich School at Ohio University, Tech Growth stepped in and helped us develop a business plan and were the lead investor in our first round. We're in Athens, Ohio, so certainly early stage angels and venture capital is not abundant, and it's been really important that the state was there. So Tech Growth participated, provided business planning, and we're also on our board. They then led another round of financing, and more recently, the Ohio Innovation Fund, which is another public-private partnership. Ohio State and Ohio University are very involved, have participated and are actually leading a round of financing that we're doing right now. So, we've had enormous benefits from both the business assistance, but also the access to capital and to grants. I think we've become, a kind of postcard for what programs like this should look like. We're about 100 employees now. We export around the world. We sell to pharma, biotech, world-class universities. But I can't stress enough that the need for early-stage capital is critical. There are good ideas generated here, and it shouldn't be necessary to go to Boston or to San Francisco to get them funded, and I think the state has done a tremendous job leveraging private funds and creating state programs. And I think one way of viewing this is it's not so much that the company we build is a critical thing, it's that we are part of building an ecosystem. So the people who've lived through this startup, the leadership and middle management team, they will be able to go through other startups, and some of them have said exactly that to me. They said, if you want to do something like this again, I'd love to be involved. So ultimately, really, the goal is not one company. The goal is to create an ecosystem of people who've lived through startups and an ecosystem of capital, early stage capital and later growth capital. And that certainly, as I said at the start, been critical to our success.
Neil, thank you so much for sharing your story. It sounds like a tremendous journey, and it's great hearing some of the successes that the investments of Ohio's economic development ecosystem have had. And thank you to all our speakers for sharing their experiences with us this morning. In closing, this latest report demonstrates that Powering Ohio means finding and acting on common ground ideas to benefit all Ohioans from the growth and transformations occurring in the energy and transportation sectors. While governmental leadership will be a key component of such success, leaders from across Ohio's strong foundation in manufacturing, innovation, education, business, and finance all have important roles to play. These actions can begin immediately, and when sustained, will allow Ohio to become a competitor for investment and then a leader in energy innovation and economic growth. I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us this morning, and we'll now open up the floor for questions from reporters at this time.
We're going to unmute all of the lines of all of the folks who have dialed in as attendees. This means whether you're a member of the press or not, we will be able to hear what's going on where you are. So you may choose to mute yourself or otherwise try to make it as quiet as you can to make sure that the folks with questions are heard.
Becky, I have
Go ahead.
Thanks. So one of the things that Sam talked about was integrating electric vehicles, and that would allow simultaneous integration of more lower-cost renewables. And I'm wondering how that works, if you could just connect the dots to spell that out. Is it because you would have this overall lower pressure on prices from more off-peak revenue, or is there something else going on that would make that work?
Yeah, one of the ways that this can occur, and this is not going to be an overnight thing, that it will take time, both for the fleet of electric vehicles to grow, and then for us to find ways to integrate those vehicles when they're parked, into the grid, as it were. But it's essentially, you can think about electric vehicles when they're not being used as batteries. That when those are plugged in using devices that have, communications and energy management capabilities, those vehicles can be used to provide services to the grid, such as frequency regulation, but they can also be used, in a demand response sense to level out the peaks and valleys of demand, and then also from a renewable standpoint, since renewables are more intermittent by their nature, electric vehicles do not have to be, when they're plugged in, they don't always have to be charging. So, for example, it can be responsive to increases in electricity produced by wind overnight, and the intermittency of that can follow, the needs to charge the vehicles overnight. So as long as that vehicle is charged when the consumer needs it, when the motorist needs it, it doesn't matter if it's charging constantly or if it can be charged intermittently. And then in terms of a solar resource, vehicles can be plugged in at workplaces, charged with solar energy in the morning, when the sun is beginning to shine, and then as we need that electricity more towards the middle to the latter part of the afternoon, if those vehicles are still plugged in, then they can provide power to smooth out the peaks. And so it's really the intermittency of the renewables paired with the intermittent need for power that electric vehicles may have as long as they're plugged in.
Thank you. If nobody else has a question at the moment, I have another one. This is Kathy again. There was a reference to opportunities in terms of growing jobs and encouraging investments. What are the risks that Ohio faces if it does not implement these various steps?
This is Asa Hopkins at Synapse. Largely, I think of it largely as the risk of a lost opportunity. These sectors are growing rapidly. Supply chains are developing. They tend to develop in geographic zones, clusters. Ohio has benefited in the auto industry from the fact that that historical cluster centered around Detroit and Ohio and Indiana has been a sort of a beating heart of the auto industry. And as these industries develop, they're going to, particularly for infrastructure-intensive things like, say, wind turbines, but also for other components, folks tend to look for their local supply chain near where they are. I mean, Becky mentioned the First Solar has more than 200 suppliers in Ohio who are supplying them. They're probably competitors to those companies further afield, but First Solar is buying local, right? So as those industries develop, they're going to develop with some amount of geographic concentration. And when you see a fast-growing set of industries, like whether it's EVs or other aspects of clean energy manufacturing, where those pieces are welcome, where the policies are favorable and stable for them, they're more likely to take root. So the risk, in large part, is a missed opportunity risk. Now, obviously, there are some legacy industries, like internal combustion engines, for example, that may also shrink over time. But the primary risk is one of missing out where others step forward, whether it's in appliances, information technology, electric generation, EVs, et cetera. So that the actions that we've designed here are really intended to make sure that Ohio can stay competitive in that growing environment.
Okay. And just as a follow-up, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Grant. I wanted to add to that, if you don't mind, Kathy and Asa. I do think, especially when you look at the first report, there was some really interesting information in looking at several of Ohio's largest companies who have adopted targets for the amount of power they will receive from renewable energy. And different target dates are put on this: 2030, 2035, by which time they'll have 80% of their power sourced from renewable energy or 100%. And some of the testimonials and some of the information we received from other advisory council members about what their companies were doing and where they were going to buy energy, and how they were looking at renewable energy as another factor in determining the location of companies and assets. I think that's an important factor. If companies can't meet their renewable energy targets from Ohio-based power, and they're looking at power purchase agreements or other mechanisms to get that power from other states, they may also ask, well, why should we bother locating in Ohio if we don't have access to the renewable energy we need, and all other factors are equal, why not be in Oklahoma or Texas where renewable energy is cheaper, or in the Southwest where solar would be cheaper? And so we do think, that this is a changing factor as companies evaluate the assets they need in making their location decisions.
And to the extent the first point talked about, or not the first point, but one of the points in the middle talked about the importance of policy and how Ohio's inconsistent policies have been a problem. Is that, do people on the panel think that's more of a challenge now after the elections, since our new governor had been one of the people suing to stop the Clean Power Plan, and we've still got, you know, a bill that would make renewable standards pretty much voluntary pending in the legislature with maybe, you know, we'll relax it but edge back on something else. I guess, is there concern about that being a harder task now than it was before the elections, and how do you strategically try to overcome that if it is a bigger problem?
This is Becky. I can speak to that some. You know, I would say renewables, both wind and solar, are increasingly least cost resources for electricity. And, you know, we're seeing that, I mean, so the industry has been saying that for a while. Now utilities across the region are starting to echo that. And there are two great regional examples from adjacent markets. So in Michigan earlier this year, Consumers Energy released a long-range resource plan that selected solar as its most favored resource in the plan because it was the lowest cost. And so the utility announced that it plans to retire all of its coal generation and make a move towards more solar and wind. In Indiana, we just saw the same thing happen with another utility, NIPSCO, where they released the results of their long-range resource plan with really similar results. And so, you know, I think the bottom line is renewables are very cost-effective now, and if, you know, I think if Ohio continues to push policies that would, you know, restrict renewables or you know, provide disincentives, then I think Ohio ratepayers are the only ones that are going to pay for that. And so, you know, personally, I look forward to working with the new administration. But you know, that's the messaging that I tend to share when I'm speaking with people in Columbus, because I don't know that that's fully understood. I think there's still a misperception that renewables tend to be a little more of a premium product, and that's just not the case anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions this morning? Well, with that, Asa, do you have a final word for us before we let go?
Sure. I want to thank Grant, Becky, Sam, and Neil for joining us, for all of their insights you provided along the way, and thanks to other advisory council members and everybody else we've talked with in Ohio. We look forward to continuing these conversations and finding champions for the actions we've identified, and look forward to helping to make a difference for Ohio going forward. So thank you all for dialing in and for joining us, and look forward to continued conversation into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.